Let us begin not with noise, but with stillness, because sometimes the loudest lie is the one that repeats in silence, "You are unlovable." But today, I will tell you something far deeper than a lie. Not a quick fix, not a cliché, something ancient, something raw, something true. There is a myth older than memory, a myth whispered in the silent corners of many minds. It begins in childhood, often quietly like a murmur that turns into a storm. And the myth says there is something wrong with me, I am unlovable. But this is not a truth. This is a wound wearing the mask of wisdom, and wounds, when left unhealed, begin to speak in riddles. They become stories we live by, stories we never chose, but ones we silently agreed to carry. You see, no child enters this world doubting their worth. They cry, they reach, they demand to be held, and in doing so, they declare their right to love. But if love doesn't come in a way they can understand, if it is inconsistent, conditional, absent, or cruel, they begin to reshape their very soul to make sense of it, because the child cannot believe their caregivers are incapable of love. No, the child concludes, if I am not loved, I must not be lovable. And that belief doesn't fade with time, it deepens. It becomes the invisible script behind every relationship, every silence, every withdrawal, every self-sabotage. It becomes the quiet ache when you're alone, and the louder one when you're not. It becomes the reason you push people away, even as you ache for closeness, the reason you shrink yourself to fit in, even as you long to be seen. This myth is not shouted, it is etched. Etched into the nervous system, the body, the bones. It doesn't speak in words. It speaks in reactions, in tension, in fear of intimacy, in the inability to believe a kind word, in the instinct to run from anyone who might truly see you. But here's what must be understood. This myth of unlovability is not based on truth. It is based on the psyche's attempt to survive abandonment, to make meaning where there was confusion, to create a reason when love was absent. And so, the myth becomes adaptive, a defense, a shield, a form of control. If I am unlovable, the psyche thinks, then at least I understand why I'm alone. At least I'm not helpless, I'm just flawed. But that illusion of control costs everything, because when you believe you are unlovable, you stop letting love in even when it knocks, even when it comes softly, even when it comes fiercely. You find a way to keep it out. You question it, you mistrust it, you destroy it before it can disappoint you. And the worst part, you become the one who abandons you because it's what you expect others to do. The myth is a labyrinth, a maze of mirrors, each one distorting your image a little more, until you forget what you actually look like, until your reflection becomes a stranger. But love, real love, cannot find you in a mirror built on lies. It can only meet you when you begin to see through the distortion, when you dare to ask, what if this voice in my head isn't telling the truth? What if the problem isn't me, but the story I was taught to believe? People often say, if I could just find someone to love me, I'd be whole. If I looked different, spoke better, succeeded more maybe, then I'd be enough. But these thoughts are illusions disguised as solutions. They are the echoes of a fragmented self, longing to be put back together from the outside. What you are missing is not love, it is not beauty, it is not charisma or worth. What you are missing is union within yourself. What you are truly starving for is inner integration. Most people walk through life in pieces. One part of them is the achiever desperate to prove they matter. Another is the inner child still grieving a hug that never came. Another is the critic keeping them small with every harsh whisper. Another is the dreamer longing for more but scared to hope. And these parts don't speak to each other. They fight, they silence, they compete. Each one pulls in a different direction, while the soul is left spinning in quiet confusion. This is what it means to be disintegrated, to be fragmented, to be a stranger to yourself, and so you look outward, for love to stitch you together, for success to validate your worth, for others to tell you who you are. But nothing from the outside can fix what is torn on the inside, because no relationship, no applause, no amount of affection can replace the necessity of knowing yourself. Integration is not a destination, it is an ongoing process of returning to what you abandoned. It is sitting with the pain instead of numbing it. It is listening to the part of you that cries in silence. It is no longer banishing the emotions you were told were too much. It is choosing to stop exiling your anger, to stop repressing your joy, to stop betraying your truth in order to be liked. Inner integration is the moment you say, all of me gets to exist, the light. The dark, the parts I've hidden, the ones I'm ashamed of, even the pieces I've been told are wrong. It is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world convinced you otherwise. You are not broken, you are disconnected, not from others, but from your own soul. And the longer you search for others to complete you, the more you abandon the one relationship that matters most, the relationship between you and you. You may find love out there, you may find people who see glimpses of you, but if you are not integrated within, you will never fully let it in. You will reject it, you will doubt it, you will assume it's temporary. You will test it until it breaks, because your inner reality will always override your outer circumstances. You can only receive to the degree that you have accepted yourself. This is the sacred paradox. The more you connect with your inner world, the more love finds you in the outer one, not because you needed them to heal you, but because you no longer needed them to complete you. There is a part of you that you've hidden, buried, dismissed, condemned. You've locked it in the basement of your psyche and called it dangerous, shameful, weak, too much, too needy, too angry, too soft. That part of you, the one you've labeled as the problem, is not your enemy. It is your shadow, and within it is the very thing you are seeking. You've spent so much time trying to become acceptable, trying to become lovable, trying to become enough, but in doing so, you carved yourself into fragments and tossed the unacceptable ones away like broken glass. But those pieces are not trash, they are treasure. The shadow is not the part of you that is bad, it is the part of you that has been exiled. Exiled not because it deserved banishment, but because it carried pain that no one taught you how to hold. Maybe your anger was too loud for a fragile household, so you learned to smile when you were furious. Maybe your sadness made others uncomfortable, so you learned to perform joy while secretly drowning. Maybe your power threatened someone else's insecurity, so you learned to shrink, to silence, to disappear. And over time, you stopped being whole. You became appropriate, pleasant, nice, safe. But in this performance, you lost something sacred, the parts of you that feel, the parts that protect, the parts that know, the parts that remember who you are. The shadow is the soul's lost memory. It is the forgotten language of your truth. It is every part of you that you had to suppress to survive. But survival is not the same as living, and eventually what you suppress becomes what haunts you. The anger turns inward and becomes depression. The fear becomes control. The unspoken pain becomes self-sabotage. And you wake up one day wondering why you can't connect, why you push love away, even as you starve for it. It's because the part of you that can receive love is the part you've rejected, and so love becomes a threat. Not because it is false, but because it touches a wound you've never made peace with. Here's the paradox. You cannot love yourself by ignoring your shadow. You can only love yourself by embracing it. To look your darkness in the eye and say, you belong here. To touch your pain without judgment. To hear your rage without running. To hold your guilt without collapsing. because when you do that, when you embrace the one you've abandoned, something sacred begins to stir. The scattered pieces begin to move toward each other. The child you silenced begins to speak again. The fire you extinguished begins to burn, not destructively, but with purpose, with clarity, with soul. Your shadow holds your instinct, your depth, your discernment, your power, your empathy, your desire, your unfiltered humanity. Without it, you're just an image, a shell of approval and performance. With it, you are whole, and wholeness is not perfection, it's inclusion. It's the wild alchemy of light and dark, of grief and gratitude, of the sacred and the scared. And until you welcome your shadow back to the table, you will never feel truly alive, because a part of you will always be missing. Beneath the surface of our personalities, beneath the routines and the rationalizations, beneath the I'm fine and the it's nothing, there are ancient patterns moving within us, stories that don't belong to us alone, stories older than memory. They are not random, they are archetypal. These archetypes are the soul's language. They don't speak in sentences, they speak in symbols, in longings, in dreams, in wounds. And nowhere do they speak more clearly than in how we give and receive love. We carry these archetypes inside us not as labels, but as mirrors, each one reflecting a deeper truth about why we love the way we do, and why it so often hurts. Some carry the wounded child. This archetype lives in the echo of unmet needs. It remembers what it means to cry and not be heard, to reach and not be held, to be punished for simply being human. And so the wounded child learns to make themselves small, to become invisible, to earn affection through achievement, people, pleasing, or silence. They crave unconditional love, but expect it will always be just out of reach. Others carry the abandoned lover. This archetype is born from betrayal, a moment when trust was broken, and the heart learned that closeness equals pain. The abandoned lover aches for intimacy, but flinches when it comes too close. They search for deep connection, yet unconsciously choose those who cannot stay. They are drawn to emotional deserts because chaos feels familiar and stillness feels like a setup for loss. Then there is the performer. This one believes, if I can just be perfect, maybe they won't leave. The performer has learned to make love a performance, to smile when they want to scream, to seduce approval with success. They wear 100 masks, each one curated, charming, untouchable. But behind the curtain is exhaustion, a deep ache that no applause can soothe. There's also the fixer. This archetype finds their identity in healing others, choosing partners who are broken, lost, or unavailable. Why? Because fixing becomes a way to earn love. The fixer believes, if I can make you whole, maybe I'll finally be enough. But this always ends the same, with burnout, resentment, and an empty cup. Because love is not meant to be a rescue mission, it is meant to be a sacred meeting. And we cannot forget the exiled self, the archetype that holds all the versions of you that were never allowed to exist. Your sensuality, your rage, your wildness, your truth. This part was locked away to be accepted, but it is the very key to intimacy, because true connection cannot happen while you are hiding the most honest parts of yourself. These archetypes aren't mistakes. They are survival strategies, elegant, intelligent adaptations to pain. They were born in the absence of safety, and they helped you make it through. But what once protected you now prevents you. You cannot fully give love while stuck in the posture of protection. You cannot fully receive love while unconsciously reenacting abandonment. And so, love becomes a battlefield not because we are broken, but because we are repeating the past in search of a different ending. But here's the quiet truth. These archetypes aren't here to trap you. They are here to teach you, to guide you, to point you back to the moment when love first became confusing so that you can finally untangle it. To meet your wounded inner characters not with shame, but with sacred curiosity, We have been taught to treat love like a transaction, something we earn, something we prove ourselves worthy of, something given in exchange for our best behavior, our brightest smile, our quietest cries. This belief is everywhere in our families, in our schools, in our relationships. We're told, be good and you'll be loved. Don't be too much. Don't ask for more than what's offered. And so we adapt. We contort ourselves. We become desirable instead of authentic, pleasant instead of honest. We learn to anticipate what others want and give it to them before they even ask, not out of generosity, but out of fear. Fear that if we show them who we really are, they will withdraw, they will retreat, they will leave. So love becomes a performance, a subtle manipulation, a game of masks. But here is the quiet tragedy. When love is earned, it is never truly received. Because a love that depends on your performance is a love that was never meant for your soul, only for the role you play. Real love, the kind your heart is wired for, doesn't arrive as a prize. It arrives as a recognition, a sacred remembering. It says, there you are, I see you. You don't need to do anything else. It's not impressed by your resume. It's not seduced by your charm. It's not measuring your worth by how easy you are to be around. It sees through the layers, the shields, the scaffolding, and gently calls your soul to come forward, not to impress, not to perform, but simply to be. Because love, in its truest form, is not something you get. It is something you are seen as. It is not earned by being lovable, it is awakened by being known. And this is why so many of us feel unloved, even when surrounded by people. It's not that love isn't present, it's that recognition is absent. They see the surface. They see the version you curated, but they do not see you, because maybe you haven't let them, or maybe they've never been safe enough to deserve that access. When you chase love as reward, you constantly question its stability. You ask, have I done enough? Do they still want me? Am I too much? Am I not enough? It creates anxiety, insecurity, emotional exhaustion. But when love comes as recognition, it creates rest. Not the sleep kind of rest, but the soul kind. The kind where you finally stop auditioning for a role you were born to play, where you stop hiding your scars behind forced smiles, where you stop fearing the parts of you that feel like too much, because someone finally looks at you and says, you're not too much. You're just not used to being met here. Recognition is what heals, because it touches something ancient in you, something that never wanted perfection, only presence. Only resonance, only truth. And here's the sacred twist. You must first give this recognition to yourself, because if you have not seen yourself, no amount of others seeing you will satisfy. You will question their gaze. You will doubt their presence. You will sabotage their love. You must look in the mirror and say, there you are. I've missed you, I know you, and I'm staying. Only then can another's recognition feel like affirmation rather than contradiction. Only then will love feel safe, not suspicious, whole, not temporary, sacred, not strategic.